Hello everybody, Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. In this video, Blake Horstmann talks about how much he makes as a DJ. As we know, Blake Horstmann, bad boy from Bachelor in Paradise. Becca Kufrin's contestant on her season of The Bachelorette. And now a lucrative DJ. He was on Trading Secrets podcast with Jason Tartick. And we're going to jump right into everything he said. Do me a favor, follow me on Instagram at DNeals and also Patreon. I'll be going live at 10 a.m. today, patreon.com/Dave Neal. Okay, let's get into the story. Bachelor franchise to Stagecoach, Blake Horstmann reveals the dollars behind his brand in DJing. I'm going to play several clips of this video. Of course, the full podcast is available on Trading Secrets. Let's have a listen.
He's sending me these videos and I'm still scrolling through them because it's hard to put into words, not only what that moment felt like and that night felt like for me. I think there was a lot of validation in it for me. It was by far probably the biggest solo show that I've played.
Stagecoach.
And when I first got to the tent, right, we're at the honky tonk tent. I get in the day before. I'm in there on Friday, and this is like one of those. It's basically a side tent, but it's one of the smaller side tents. You know what I mean? It's like the side tent. It's one in the back, and it's the only one air conditioned, which is fantastic. But I walk in there Friday during the day, and it's a lot of like line dancing and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna be playing this. Like, I don't know what to expect here, you know. And I'm like, God, no. And I do this at every show. I really, really do. I always think nobody's gonna show up. You know, I really do. I just always am like, I don't know if anybody's gonna show up. Like, why would somebody show up to see me? Blah, blah. And then of course, you know, it's packed and the energy's insane. And it was kind of the same thing. We got there about an hour before my set was to start on Saturday. It was kind of full, but not that full. And, you know, at a festival like there, you know, it was Lee Bryce before me. So people were probably waiting for Lee Bryce to finish up. And I was just sitting there in the trailer like, man, what if nobody shows? What if nobody shows? And I walk out there, and the second that first like drop hits and I see everybody turn and just walk towards the stage, and I see people piling in from the sides, I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be the most amazing night. And then just the energy. And I think one thing that I'm proud of, and that I really think that I do better than most DJs, and that is my energy on this stage and just how much I love doing what I love. And so just keeping that energy going for 2 hours, which is how long I played from beginning to end, was something I don't think I've seen before. Like, there was literally zero lulls. I didn't see somebody either on shoulders or hands in the air.
So this is a really big deal for Blake. Now, as we know, Blake Horstmann was on Bachelor in Paradise and went to Stagecoach before Bachelor in Paradise, where he hooked up with different women that would then be on Bachelor in Paradise, got in hot water over that. So for him to vindicate himself and to do a little bit of a redemption story here as a DJ, as a featured performer, is really cool. We're going to get into this next clip. I was on Game of Roses podcast. We recorded it yesterday. It should be live today, Game of Roses. And they asked me who my favorite contestant was on the show with a post, like their post game, how they've done it since being on the show. And one of my answers was Blake Horstmann, just because he's been able to reinvent himself not just as an influencer, but as a draw, and that's really hard to find. We're going to talk more about that. He's going to share how much he made, but I'll give you my thoughts on that, because you know, when it comes down to it, a DJ and a comedian are very similar in that they're bringers. Their job is to bring audience, whether it's to a comedy club, which is essentially dinner theater. You're bringing an audience so that the club can make money off of drinking bad food sales, you know, some fried chicken, whatever, you know, chicken strips. DJs are the same. They're there to entertain an audience that's paying a lot of money for liquor. So when you do the job right, when you can bring a big audience, the world is yours.
Never do. How long have you been DJing for? Was this something that it was like quarantine hobby that you picked up, like, or, you know, I left my 9-to-5 job, I need something to do. So how long have you been playing? And then quick part two, do you wear your Apple Watch on stage? Because keeping an energy up for 2 hours, I need to know how many calories you're burning on stage during a show.
Yeah. So I'll answer the first part first. So, you know what? I've always been this music guy. Like, I've always been the guy, like when I told my close friends, even not my close friends, just friends of mine and family, that I was going to, you know, jump head first into this music world and this DJing, a lot of them were like, that makes complete sense, because you've always been kind of more or less the life of the party, and you love music. And I was always like the aux guy, you know what I mean? I was always the guys that people turn to, whether it be in college, at my parties. Like, I was always the aux guy, whether it be the DJing in the car. Like, that was just me. I had the new music. I had all that kind of stuff, the cool remixes. So I really actually did. I kind of owe everything to Caitlin Bristow. I started, I came off Paradise, and I was still under contract. And I was in a we'll get into it, but I was in a very weird point in my life where I had kind of more or less quit my job for the Paradise thing. And I was, looking forward to maybe what was going to come of that. And then it didn't obviously work out the way I'd wanted. And I just felt a little lost at the time. And I'll never forget when I got the text from Caitlin Bristow. I was actually on an airplane, and I remember tearing up because I felt like a bit like an outsider at this point in Bachelor Nation. Like, people were a little afraid to really put their neck out for me or have me do certain things, related to them, whether it be, their brand or whatever it is. And at the time, I couldn't actually be like a guest on the podcast because I was still in a contract. So she was like, "What do you think if you like DJ'd?" And I was like, "You know what? Okay, let's do it." Like, I've never actually DJ'd for a crowd before, but let's do it. So I bought a little controller, and I kind of just messed around. I think we ended up doing like, I don't know how many, like 10 dates, I think it was, or something like that. And honestly, like, looking back, obviously I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was a moment for me being like, wait a minute, I think this is something I want to do. Like, I was really passionate. I enjoyed the feeling of the crowd and
I love it. It's like a workaround from the contracts. The contracts are like, you can't share your stories. Like, well, how about I share some music? So of course, one of my favorites, Caitlin Bristow, is responsible for him leaping in the net will appear, because of course she's done the same thing. They're both very lucrative in their business mindset here. All right, he's going to talk about the breakdown of what he got paid for Stagecoach.
Stagecoach, are you partnering brand deals with DJing, and what does like money look like in that space on a Stagecoach? And also in general, like, someone's listening to this, like, you know what, maybe I'll try DJing at like the local bar, like, or give it a shot, or I'll take a class. What would you say the overall like money earnings potential is in this space? Those are two loaded questions, but we got to get to the money. That's what we do.
No, they're
secrets.
Yeah, they're great questions, because I didn't even really know coming in, and I did have to lean on a lot of mentors and a lot of people in the industry, because I sometimes they tell me what they're going to pay, and I'm like, wow, like, it's like that much, you know what I mean? And I think if you're in the nightlife industry, you get it. I think those kinds of people understand what DJs get paid, because basically this is the way I was told they look at it. And this is for like huge, like, okay, Stagecoach, for example, but also Vegas clubs and these clubs that are selling tables for $50K a pop. They literally, if they are able to sell one table extra or one table for more than they normally would because you're DJing, that is your payment. So that's how they kind of base what they're going to pay you, is like, hey, listen, we have a $50,000 table here. If we can charge 65 for that and it's going to go, then we're going to pay Blake 65K. So but that's how it is.
Before, how would they know if Blake can sell that?
So that's the hard part. So that's the hard part with the places like Vegas and stuff. You really do have to have a pretty good.
So everything really comes down to sales. Now, Blake's done DJing for several years. There's DJs that are 10 to 20 years in the game that are going to be technically far superior, like in a blind study where you're just listening to the music and getting the vibe. There's DJs that are going to be far superior to him that have no success, because part of the business is putting asses into seats or onto the dance floor and buying liquor and doing all of that. And it's the same thing with comedy. You can be like a road dog comedian 20 years in, just a beast of a comic, but there can be a viral sensation who's 2 years in, he's going to sell more tickets. Now, when it comes to building a loyal audience, you need people that want to come back. You need word of mouth. If he sucked at DJing, which of course he doesn't, he's good. If he sucked at DJing, no one would ever come back. People would talk, oh boy, this guy blew it. But he's brought an audience, delivered, and the world is opening up for him. I mean, he's probably making a fortune.
Rep for yourself. Okay. Yeah, some serious credibility. But I mean, like Stagecoach, the coolest thing too, let me back up a little bit. One of the coolest things too in what I do is I DJ, but then I also bring that following. And so some bars just enjoy that I'm there posting and that I'm there advertising for their bar. Let's say I've gotten some really cool deals with like some new bars that pop up, and they're like, not only do we get an awesome DJ with Blake, but we also get this influence and these people, the eyes on this new bar in New York, in Texas, in California, wherever it is. So I actually have an ability to be a little more versatile as a DJ, and Stagecoach is a great example of that.
And so for every person he brings into a new bar, say he goes to Dallas, there's a new bar, someone comes in and spends $30. It's probably usually a lot more. The average person probably spends $60, $80, I don't know, at a bar. That person might come back 10 more times. So that person's, like, the acquisition of that audience member is huge. So these DJs, they get paid good money because it's a one-man shop. They're not a band with all the different things they got to set up. No, they can come in with their laptop, and if they have an audience and a draw, also increase their social media, also increase their notability in the area.
Partnered not only with Stagecoach to DJ, but then I partnered with Stagecoach to post, and then I partnered with a couple other brands while they're on on the festival grounds who were sponsors of Stagecoach. So I don't think every DJ was probably able to do that, you know what I mean? Because they don't have the following. So that's something that I, not only do I get paid to DJ, but I also get paid for the following and the influence of the eyes on the bar or club or whatever it is.
Got it.
So and the house that you stayed in.
And the house, exactly. The house I stayed in was insane.
All right, I got it. This is my job. It's drilled down. Stagecoach weekend with all the partnerships. Under over 10K.
Over. Over.
Under
I
over
almost got
20K.
Over.
Oh, under over 30K.
Over.
Under over 40K.
No, right there. Yeah, right there.
Holy look at this guy.
I'll be honest, I was surprised he didn't get paid more than that, to be quite honest. I thought he was going to get paid more than that. But, festivals don't pay nearly as much as, say, a Vegas club. A Vegas residency, I mean, these DJs are making crazy money because the venues are making crazy money. But it's all about building equity. Like, you can... People will leave comments, oh my gosh, that's absurd. He gets paid $40,000 to do an hour's worth of work playing music. Well, you go, look, the guy went on TV. The guy built his following. There's different ways you can build your following. You can do it through a slow grind. You can do it through Instagram lives or whatever it is. But you build your following. The world is yours. That's your equity. That's what you can do with it. He's going to talk in a minute about Pauly D, who I always use as an example. DJ Pauly D was just on Jersey Shore, which turned out to be a phenomenon. I don't know if you ever watched Jersey Shore. I used to love this show, to be honest. Every year they were supposed to have a different cast, but the first year's cast, everybody loved them so much, they just kept on bringing them back. Actually, a friend of mine from college, his wife is I think the executive producer on the Jersey Shore reunion shows, because every once in a while they'll do reunion shows and do they'll be, because they're like, they have some of them have kids now. They're just full grown adults with tan lines and no more abs. It's interesting. But DJ Pauly D is a good example where he was like opening up for Britney Spears because he had an audience and he could do what he needed to do, which was just get out there, play the music and pump up a crowd. And, you're only, it's a one-man job. It's low overhead. There's no business expenses. There's no other people to pay.
Just like excitement, more hype on social media. They say it all leads the bar industry. And this doesn't go for every bar. Of course, every bar has its niche, but most bar industries or clubs lead with getting women in the door. And so on top of having a following, you have a following that is 97% women. And so if there is someone out there that's listening that has a female following or female group, you have a ton of leverage if you can bring them into that bar. I think it's really cool that you did that. I want to ask you about like those Vegas DJs real quick before we get over the DJ talk. Steve Aoki, some of these like big time DJs, you're in the industry now. What are the big time Vegas DJs getting for a set, for a night of work?
Yeah. So for somebody, that's a great question coming off of what you just said, because my kind of the person who obviously like in my world, as far as like kind of, has a reality TV following, DJs, this high energy, whatever, DJ Pauly D, right? DJ Pauly D. He's been doing it since, way back. He was like the OG, he's like the OG reality TV DJ, if you will, or the one with, that kind of following. And he was the 15th highest paid DJ in the world. Would have been right before COVID hit off. And he made 15 million in 2018. 15 million. That man's pulling in about, hey, he actually just posted, because I follow him. He just posted his calendar for this coming month, for May, 16 dates, and he gets about 50K to more a date.
Wow. So DJ Pauly D beating up the beat. Look, speaking of promos here, I've got a stand-up show on Thursday. That's 2 days from now in Burbank, California. Now, for this show, I actually rented out the venue, which doesn't cost too much, $150, and then I'll be charging ticket sales of $10. And will we be making a lot of money? No, I'm probably gonna break even because I'm gonna give some tickets away and whatever. It's not, but it goes to show, like if I were performing in a theater where some theaters 3,000 seaters and you're charging $40 a ticket, you do the math. That's $120,000. Did I get that right? Did I do that right? 120,000, right? So the point being is that when you build your audience, when you have your following, when you do your thing, the world opens to you when you're not renting out your time. Follow me on Patreon if you want more bonus content. I'll be going live right after this, patreon.com/Dave Neal, and also on Instagram @DNeals for my show dates. Tonight, I've got a stand-up show at a awesome rooftop bar in Hollywood, and then that's at 7 p.m. And then at 9 p.m., I have a show at another bar near LAX. And then, like I said, Thursday, I will be in Burbank. And then May 27th and 28th, I have shows in Chicago. More info on that. Just follow me on Instagram. You'll get all the info for that. And I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Bye, everybody.